Hi students, 11th standard Computer Science and Computer Application. So in this video, we are going to learn about what is data, information and components of computer and booting of computer. Now let us see one by one. Data and information. What is computer? We know that it is an electronic device. It processes the input according to the set of instruction and gives the desired output. So whatever we give, so that consider as an input and process something and it produce the output at very fast level. So computers are very versatile as they do a lot of different tasks like storing data, weather forecasting, booking airlines, railway or movie tickets, and even playing games also. In many fields, we use computers. What is data? So data means it is defined as an unprocessed collection of raw facts and suitable for a communication, interpretation or processing. For example, 134, 16, Kavita, C. So these are called a data. They will not give any meaningful message. It's just a data. Information. Information means it is a collection of facts from which conclusion may be drawn. In simple words, we can say that the data is a raw facts that is processed to give meaningful. So when we collect all the information and process something, that is called information. Then structured information. For example, in data we know that 16, Kavita, like that we discussed. So Kavita is 16-year-old. When we frame a sentence, so it is this information is about Kavita and convey some meaning. She is 16-year-old. So this conversion of data into information is called data processing. Just we collect all the information and process and then produce some meaningful output. So the output is called as information. So these processes are called data processing. So we know that computer means it is the electronic device that takes a raw data, that is unprocessed data as an input and then process it under some controls, some instructions. Here the instructions are called programs and it produce output. So the output is called as information and then it sometimes it's a for future use. So here see this diagram. So how we process input, process and it produce the output. Components of a computer. So now we are going to discuss about components of computer. So the computer is the combination of hardware and software. So what is hardware? So hardware means it is a physical component of a computer. Like we can say it as monitor, motherboard, mouse, keyboard, memory devices. So these are all called, the physical components are called hardware. Software. So software means it is a set of programs or instructions. So just what we give, it processes something. So we have two types of softwares. One is application software, another one is system software. So OS is the example for system software. So the both hardware and software together make the computer system to function. Now let us see the functional components of a computer. So every task given to a computer follows an input, process, output cycle. So it needs a certain input and process that input and produce the desired output. So the input unit takes input. The CPU, that is central processing unit, does the processing of data and the output unit produce the output. So the first one is input unit. It gets the data and process it and it produces the output. So the memory unit hold the data and instruction during the process. Now let us see one by one. Input unit. Input unit is used to feed any form of data to the computer, which can be stored in memory unit for further processing. So just we are going to give any form of data to feed into the computer. Some examples for input units are keyboard, mouse, etc. CPU, Central Processing Unit. So CPU is the major component which interprets and executes a software instruction. So it also controls the operation of all the other components like memory, input and output units. It accepts binary data as input, process the data according to the instruction and provide the result as output. So the CPU, it is the major component in a computer. Then the CPU has three components, that is control unit, arithmetic and logic unit and memory unit. So when we give the data, the CPU process all the data, process the data and produce the output. Arithmetic and logic unit, ALU. So ALU is the part of the CPU and various computing functions are performed on data. So the ALU performs arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and logical operations also. So the result of an operation is stored in internal memory of CPU. So the logical operations of ALU promote the decision making ability of a computer. Control unit. The control unit controls the flow of data between CPU, memory and IO devices. So it controls all the operations what we perform. And it also controls the entire operation of a computer. So the control unit controls all the operations. Output unit. So an output unit is any hardware component that convey enough information to the user in an understandable form. So input unit means just we feed information to the computer. Output unit means what we get from the computer, that is the hardware components. Example, monitor, printer, plotters, etc. Memory unit. The memory unit is it consists of two types. One is a primary memory and another one is a secondary memory. The primary memory is used to store the data and programs for temporarily. So the primary memory is used to temporarily store the programs and the data when the instructions are ready to execute. When we process the processing time, it stores the data in temporarily. We can store it in primary memory. And the secondary memory is used to store the data permanently. So the secondary memory only used to store the data permanently. The primary memory is called as volatile. So volatile means the content is lost when the power supply is switched off. So when the power is switched off, it means the content on the primary memory will erase. So RAM is the example for main memory, that is random access memory. So the secondary memory is non-volatile memory, which means the content is available even after the power supplied is switched off. The hard disk examples for secondary memories are hard disk, CD-ROM, DVD-ROM. So here ROM. ROM means read-only memory. Next, we are going to discuss about booting of computer. What is the meaning of booting of computer? Now, so the OS, operating system, is a basic software that makes the computer to work. When a computer is switched off, there is no information in its RAM. Already we know that when we switch off the computer, the content is deleted in a RAM. But at the same time, in ROM, the pre-written program called POST, Power on Shelf Test, will be executed first. So this program checks if the device like RAM keyboard, etc. are connected properly and ready to operate. So if these devices are ready, then BIOS, that is basic input output system, it gets executed. So this process is called as booting. That means thereafter a program called bootstrap loader transfers OS from hard disk into main memory. Now the OS gets loaded, that is OS either Linux, Windows, whatever it is, and it will get executed. So the booting process is consists of two types. One is cold booting and another one is warm booting. So here a cold booting means when the system starts from the initial state, that is it is switched on, we call it cold booting or hard booting. The another name of cold booting is called hard booting. When the user presses the power button, the instructions are read from the ROM to initiate the booting process. Next one is warm booting. So here warm booting means when the system restarts or when we reset a button, when we use a reset button is pressed, we can call it as warm booting or soft booting. If we use a reset button, that is called warm booting or soft booting. So the system does not start from the initial state, and also the diagnosed test need not be carried out in this case. So there are chances of data loss and system damage as the data might not have been stored properly. So booting means when we switch on the computer, so it checks all the devices like RAM, keyboards are connected properly and ready to operate. So if these devices are ready, then we used a basic input output system, it gets processed. So this is called as booting. So it has two types, one is cold booting, another one is warm booting. Cold booting means when we switch on the computer from the initial state, that is called cold booting. Warm booting means reset, when we use a reset button, that is called warm booting. Thank you, students.